Okay, we're on air now. Sorry about that.
I mean, I don't know who's going to want to go back and look at it, but anyway, me as well, right? One thing I wanted to bring up is that a few people here are actually doing a technical translation, either doing it now or that's the direction you want to go in. And our piece was really, this is non-technical translation. This is stuff you really have to. Well, I don't want to say that you don't have to think about technical translation, but you think of it in a different way. You maybe approach it in a different way. So is there anything anybody would like to say on that, say the difference between general translation, technical translation, or anything in that area?
Well, I don't have a lot of experience with technical translation yet, but I studied computer science a little bit in college, so that was sort of an angle that I've been looking into. And I've got I just took a translation trial from a company that specializes in computer science research, and it looks like I may be able to get some jobs from them. And it was a very different experience from anything I translated before. And I found it very challenging because I had to do some research into some terms that I was no longer familiar with or that I'd never been familiar with. And a lot of times it seems like if you don't use the very particular jargon that is used in English for that term, then nobody's going to know what you're talking about. So I found that very challenging, but I hope to be able to do that in the future. So.
More technical. In the technical areas. Amanda.
Hmm?
You mean you hope to do that more in the future? I was just writing, right? Do what, specify those pronouns? Can you?
I'm sorry? I don't understand the question.
So you said you want to do more, you do that more in the future, like computer related tech, is that
do more computer related technical translation in the future, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if any of you do have a specialty, especially a technical specialty, you have to sort of really work it, because it's a feather in your cap, eh? People like...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go on.
Oh, it's just, I've been dabbling in, I grew up, my mother's a physician, and we have a clinical research center in my family. So I grew up around clinical trials and things like that, and working some of them. So I've been doing some medical translation, but even that is tricky because, each specialty has their own set of jargon, like Amanda was saying. So, so having to deal with jargon, I think is that's a skill in and of itself. So yeah, it's tricky, but it's fun.
Yeah, you can probably make more money at technical translation because there's repetition. You don't have to go to dictionaries once you learn it, is what I hear. And the rates are higher than general translation.
It does seem like it would take a lot of work, though, because honestly, it took me far, far too long to do that translation trial that I did. So I think that one of the best ways for me to become efficient doing that sort of work is I'd really have to go all out. I'd have to spend my free time reading articles about these topics in Japanese, reading textbooks in Japanese. And I mean, I'm not opposed to that, but I do think that it takes a lot of legwork, is the impression I'm getting, to make sure you're really familiar with those terms. Otherwise, it just takes so long to look them up.
I've found similar. Yeah, I've found the same thing, Amanda.
It was your first try at it, right, Amanda? So.
Yes, it was a research paper about machine learning, so it was an experience.
Yeah, so basically the point with technical translation is that you get familiar with a rather narrow area and you get better at it faster than you would if, as a general translator, you have to keep constantly familiarize yourself with new areas. And
that's very true.
Right. So, but that is the trade-off. One of those trade-offs that I enjoy being a general translator, which is that I get to see a range of different things, and it's more interesting. Technical translation can get boring, and so
that's a good point. I'm still kind of getting started, so I'm still in a position where there's a lot of things that I haven't tried yet. Therefore, I don't know how I feel about them, and I think my desires may change over time. As you said, I may quickly start to find that a little bit too headache-inducing, but for now, it seems like a good opportunity, so I'll give it a go.
Yeah, go with how you feel. I mean, I knew at the beginning that I didn't want to do patent translation, although that's a really lucrative field. It's just that I didn't want to try to figure out, what widget goes into what widget and all that stuff. So,
Sure.
I wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah, and I think that the one similarity between patent translation and technical translation seems to be that you don't have a lot of room for vagueness. You have to be very specific. And that does seem to be a really big difference between patent and technical translation and general translation as well, is you don't have as much room to write pretty English that sounds nice. You have to be very careful about not being too vague.
yes, exactly. And that's where patent translators are going to want to make sure everything is in there. You're not leaving anything out. So longer,
Very stressful.
the longer word counts are not an issue.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Pharma translation love about pharma translators love about pharma translation is that Japanese is full of very long chemical names, all written in katakana.
Yes, yeah, I've run into that. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I've not run into this. That sounds atrocious.
The longer they are, the happier they are. Really, the longer these terms are, the happier these translators are, because they'll get a 30-character chemical name
Oh my goodness.
that's already in their translation memory, and they've just earned 600 yen.
Oh, that's nice. I'd love to work up to that. No, the worst was I was doing a transcription for a pharmaceutical company, and trying to make out these drug names. Because the drug names are already weird in English.
Yeah.
And trying to hear them say what it is in Japanese, I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was an experience. That was fun.
Yeah. Anybody else? Technical area.
I'm also technical in the automotive industry. And one thing I read another translator saying was that if you are not coming from an engineering background, it's less of a disadvantage than one might think, because this person was saying some of the terms you run into, they're not terms that you learn in engineering school, because maybe it's a word that company just made up. And we have all sorts of words like that at the place where I work. We have words that someone just made up, like this. There's a motor pipe and it looked like a sea cucumber, so in Japanese they call it a namako. Because it looks like a sea cucumber.
Of course.
There are a lot of stories like that. So those like really, really esoteric words, there's not really a disadvantage even if you don't have a technical background, but it is also harder for us to grasp the general context of what's going on and what the engineers are talking about. So
on the subject
yeah,
of Japanese engineers, do you get lots of jobs that should be done in Word but come in Excel? Because
Oh my God.
Oh, don't even start.
Somebody does.
No idea.
no one ever told Japanese engineers that Excel isn't a word processor, right?
God, literally every single document comes in Excel, no matter what it should be done in. It's the only thing they know how to use. It's terrible. And they'll put half a sentence in one cell and then jump down to the next cell and keep going with the sentence.
They don't even expand cells, do they?
Well, they don't know how to hit enter within a cell, so they just go to the next one and keep typing. It's terrible.
Sounds hilarious.
It's a topic that frequently comes up with me and the other translator. We just one of us will start complaining. We'll start making annoyed sounds, and we'll be like, "You got some terrible Excel document, didn't you?"
I don't mind the Excel ones, but sometimes they come to us in PDFs, and we don't have a PDF software that has an OCR for Japanese characters. So if it's just like one picture that's stuck into the PDF file, then we're like making text boxes and pasting the text boxes over the Japanese manually.
Yeah,
so that can be pretty tedious.
Ours will even send us like pictures of things in Excel and then have us translate it.
Wait, you can put pictures in Excel? Oh my goodness.
You have no idea. You have no idea.
You can do anything in Excel.
You can put anything in Excel. But I do get a lot of like business meeting or like meeting minute documents that were handwritten, which is really annoying to translate. Handwritten
that's
Japanese.
terrible.
Yeah, that's always fun.
If they're PDFs, Amber, you can always use a cloud-based OCR. I think there's ABBYY or something. They do an online thing. You just upload the document and we'll go through it.
I've tried a couple of those with never very satisfactory results. So if anyone has any suggestions on good ones, I'd be very happy.
Yeah, I don't yet. I've been looking myself, so I'm going to write that down. ABBYY?
I think it's that, yeah. Oh, just search for online OCR or something like that.
Yeah, because the dead PDFs, those kill me when I have to, recreate it someplace else and all the pictures and all that. Yeah, I can't.
Yeah, I had a fun one that was what was it? It was test results from some part test, airbag deployment, I believe. And so they had like, part of it was in Excel, and then part of it was an image that I couldn't edit, and then I had to put it all into another document and put little text boxes over the image that I copied. And
actually, I will tell my client I will submit it in Word. I'm not going to go through, jump through all those hoops to recreate the formatting. A lot of translators have said this over the years that, we're not paid to format. And
I am.
So you're in-house. So
yes, I'm in-house. So
developing another skill.
Yeah.
But I did think that after the first time, Richard, I was like, I think if I do this more often, then they're going to have to pay for the extra time and effort. Because the translation part took me maybe an hour or two. The formatting took me twice that.
Right.
Yeah, that happens regularly, where if you translate it, you just break all the formatting. So you need to completely reformat it to get it even somewhat close. So if I were doing freelance, I would definitely say something.
Yeah, there needs to be a price adjustment for that, I think.
Yeah. There's always a line you draw. As a freelance translator, even this week I just had a situation where a client who really doesn't send me that much work, maybe hasn't for a year or so, they asked me to do an Excel-based job, and it was very complicated. There were many sheets, and I couldn't quite even figure out what am I supposed to do. And they sent it around 8:30 at night.
And what was the turnaround?
No, the turnaround was maybe 10 pages a day plus. Relative, schedule-wise, now that's doable. But the problem was that when I actually looked at I talked to the coordinator on the phone, and I looked at the English. They wanted me to do piece by piece. Some in-house translator had already done parts of it, and I looked at it and I said, "This is unintelligible." And I said, first time I declined because it was an Excel sheet. I said, "I don't work in Excel. They want me to write into Excel." They came back and said, please do it if you can't. Or they called and said, okay, here's what you have to do. And I say, oh, I see. This is the Japanese in one sheet and the English in another. Okay, I can do it. And when I looked at the English, I said, this is absolutely terrible. And I don't want to lower my standard by throwing a good translation into a mixed garbage piece. And I said no a second time. And then they said, well, we want to get this work from the client to send us right from the beginning. So can you do it? So second time I accepted finally. But the moment I hit accept, they had already sent me a message saying, well, they're thinking, because I hadn't responded in a while, okay, you can cancel it. We understand your position. You don't want to.
Oh, so close.
You know, and I said, okay, I'm good. I'm good with the cancellation. That's fine. Very interesting thing. It just happens.
Yeah. Sometimes I get where one of the Japanese associates from our mother company tried to translate something and they sent it over to us, and then I have to try and figure out what they were saying. There was one really funny one where my Japanese coworker in the engineering department asked me to translate something from English to Japanese, and I swear to God, this had already been translated from Japanese to English, so there had to be a Japanese original somewhere because it made absolutely no sense, and it sounded like someone just chokuyaku'd the whole thing, and we had no idea what it meant. So we did our best, but it was mostly unintelligible. So.
Talking about mixed documents, that's one thing that I get a lot with native checking. Somebody will translate maybe 10% or 20% of the document. 3 months later, the client will want the rest of the document translated.
Oh.
So there, and all of the original English translation from the first part is wrong. And it's also marked as don't touch. So I can't even tell them, this is wrong. You got spelling mistakes. You can compare the English part that was in the original Japanese that wasn't translated with the translated part, and there's spelling mistakes in both pieces of English. And don't touch. Okay. So yeah, my cleanup is right next to parts that are obviously wrong.
Yeah, so we always have to walk a fine line when the client wants to have things a certain way. And different translators have a different approach. Some will say, if that's what they want, give them garbage, you know. But I know Jeremy, yeah, he's going like this. Jeremy,
Yeah, but I try to dispose of clients that are happy with garbage.
right. Jeremy's always trying to he's saying, you know, this is in your best interest. So, you know, you want to have the best quality that you can, right, Jeremy?
Yeah. One of the things you have to sometimes convince clients that you're right, and you can use all sorts of things. For example, Google hits, number of hits, and you know, if you look into the hits, if you go maybe to the 10th window of hits, you'll find that most of them are repetitions, and that this Google hit count is not really that reliable. But very few clients know that.
Oh.
And so you can really impress them with huge hit counts, convince them that you're right.
Also, you can cherry pick what you think is good. I mean, I never use Google Hits, but if I want to justify why I did something, I'll choose, you know, the best thing to support my position. I mean, it's valid. I'm not saying that's a trick, but if there are different opinions, then, you know, you make your decision based on your own opinion, and then if you need to support it, you say this is why. I'll show you this is what is in common use. Another thing can be common maybe in British English, but in, in hospital or in the hospital, well, does necessary if you're using American English.
I think someone mentioned this too, that while you're translating, you do searches for all to get corroboration for something or other, and you come across a very useful website. Add it in a comment. Say, I took this from, I referred to this site, and or this site says such and such, and so you can sort of preempt them as well by doing that, and they'll hey, he's done his research. And so you can preempt a lot of problems by doing that. And you found the site anyway, so you may as well sort of show that you've done all this work.
Yes, and when you're doing your research, also be careful what is a Japanese-sourced English. Be careful. If it's the company itself, then it's likely to be a translation from the Japanese. And I think on many occasions I've said, well, it's just not a good translation. You have it on your website and you wanted to use it, but, well, if you insist, then okay, but it's really terrible. You should do it over,
Yeah.
Coming
I think that's something.
Go ahead, Jordan.
I just say, I think that's something that really affects me. Being a supplier of Honda, the Japanese kind of bleeds over, and even people who have never studied Japanese or anything, they will use things that are really, you can tell, are just influenced by the Japanese, or just translations that went weird and somehow just became common use. So it is definitely something. Sometimes the other translator and I will search things, and we have to sit there and try and figure out, like, is this just a translation, or is this how people actually say this in real English? We're not sure sometimes, but it is something that you need to be careful about.
Right. Do people really say this? And what words have emoji or something? That's become, global now. So it was a Japanese word, right?
Yeah.
So some things you dismiss out of hand, saying, "Oh, that's Japlish," but it's not, because it's become,
Common use.
useful. Yeah, common use. So, so on that point, I'm going to go back into the base camp and talk about mochiron no koto. I think was it Amber that you brought up that topic?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to type in something because it's what my client came back to me and said, "You didn't put it in mochiron no koto. I want you to put that in." So I'll bring that up later in the thread. Speaking of which, I want to bring Shu back in here for the moment and find out what's our schedule over the next. Are we ending immediately? Can we continue to talk a little bit on Basecamp for a few days, or what's the deal?
Yeah, of course, we can continue our discussions in Forum A until this coming Wednesday. Sometime this coming Wednesday, we would ask our webmaster to put our Forum A in a read-only mode. So, and the forum will be eventually shut down, maybe 1 week later. So we have 3 days, 4 days further discussion period, and then we have another 1 week to read only.
Okay. So during that time, again, keep bringing up any topics that you want, business related or anything like, and so we still have a few days.
That's good.
And I don't know, the wasted time. Can I say something about the?
Oh yes, please do.
I just found it this morning, and I thought, Jeremy, even though technically, you're cutting out but you're reducing the total time, and what you're doing is you're cutting out the. Anyway, I think I better write it. But the thing that I was thinking is that even if logically it should be reducing time by 20%, the total time by 20%, if you say wasted time and it's a headline, it's going to catch people's eye. Reduce wasted time, how do you do that? And so therefore, even if it's logically incorrect, it's a headline, it's supposed to grab attention, it could go in there.
Yeah, I
So
see.
you're saying it's emotionally effective, in other words?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jeremy?
Yeah, I agree. That might be effective. Although I think, you know, people generally find meetings a waste of time. So, well, I'm speaking from the point of view of a freelancer who very rarely ever attends meetings. I'm very happy with that.
Yeah, really. No commute, no meetings. Well, sometimes my back and forth over this this job, I wound up putting in a couple of hours and then not getting the job. Didn't want the job, basically. Still, I had started recording the amount of time that I was putting into it.
Yeah, I put up that example mainly to see whether anyone noticed, you know, the illogicality of it.
I think it's pretty obvious. It's obvious, but you know, saying that you're reducing meeting time, most people when they go to meetings don't have a choice. So if you're reducing the amount of meeting times, then yeah, please stop asking me to go. I don't want to be in the meeting.
Yeah, I think it's quite significant that Microsoft Japan developed this feature. Because in Japan, you know, if you're asked, maybe even if it's a formality, you tend to go and sit through boring meetings just because you're expected to. But all the time you're sort of fiddling with your smartphone under the table, replying to emails and so on.
Sometimes you can't even get away with that.
I thought it quite sinister, this my analytics thing, quite sinister in a way, though, because it means they're always spying on you. Well, they say that the insights are only given to the individual and not to the bosses, and so on and so on and so on. But,
They say.
just the idea that someone somewhere is sort of watching you all the time, really. Or not someone, some machine.
Well, I was in one company up in Tokyo where the IT department had logging turned on for all the computers. And they knew exactly what everyone was doing with their downtime.
Oh, man.
That's
that
scary.
would go to the supervisors.
That's scary.
So
Yeah.
Your brother's watching you.
yes.
It's like those Amazon Amazon warehouse workers with their terminals there. You know, every step they take is tracked. And
Oh my goodness.
So I want to ask at this point, did anyone bring some question prepare a question for this video conference today? And if you did, please go ahead and bring it up, a question or a comment.
Well, it's not a prepared question exactly, but I wanted to ask while I have the opportunity, since I'm still getting started in the translation industry, I'm not really sure what I'm doing in regards to job hunting, I guess. I've picked up a few like little bits of translation here and there, but do you have any advice for getting started? And for those of you who have in-house positions, how did you land those and what kind of qualifications did you need? So that sort of thing, I guess.
I guess I can go first on how I got my in-house job. I came back to the States after living in Japan for 6 years, and at first I was working in a company and doing something totally different, but from time to time we had some Japanese people come on business trips just every now and then, and they didn't have enough of a need for an interpreter to hire someone who was really good, so they only had me. And,
I see.
I got to, well, I'm really grateful I got to start doing interpreting that way. And so then I got actual workplace experience doing interpreting, and it was technical, it was with electronics. So then after doing that for a few years, I was at about N2 level, and I applied for some other jobs, and I was talking to a recruiter because there are some companies in America that specialize in specifically Japan-related jobs. And I was saying to this recruiter, eventually I think I'd like to be a full-time interpreter translator, but I'm not sure I'm good enough yet. And the recruiter said to me, I think your level is fine right now. So that's how I got my current job.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Do you think that it's necessary to pass the N1 to be employable, or do you think that that's just sort of like something on top? Because I've been working towards that, but I'm not sure it's going to happen come July. So
Yeah,
it depends on what company you want to work for. So if you want to work for Sony or Nintendo or Honda, then yeah, they're going to ask for N1. But there are a ton of companies that will not necessarily require N1, especially in the States. So I got, besides the job I'm currently at, I got another job offer for an interpreter position before passing N1. And there are a lot out there where they don't necessarily require you to have N1 if you're pretty proficient.
That's really great to hear.
Yeah, I'm taking N2 in July, so I've been studying hard for it, and hopefully I'll pass. But
I guess I can.
I believe in you.
N1 and N2 are.
Oh, I guess
JLPT, Japanese Language Proficiency Test.
I guess once you have the experience, and people know you by reputation, it's probably something that's, it's meaningless, because it's at this point it's just something to get your foot in the door. You prove that you're competent enough for them to even look at your resume.
But most, for example, most agencies they set trials, So if they look at your trial attempt, then they can usually judge the level.
that's a relief, because I'm a terrible test taker. So even if I've studied for months, I could freeze on the day of. So.
It's really stressful.
But trials are things that you can do in your own time, you download the file, do it, send it in, then they get back to you. Well, that's how it was when I used to study now.
That's something I should look into more. I've done a few trials for companies. But one issue for me is that I'd like to stay in Japan for a while, so I need to get visa sponsorship somehow. So I did originally really want to do an in-house position since I'm just starting out, but a lot of those have been very competitive. Even the native checker in-house positions, I've done a lot of interviews, but I haven't gotten any offers. So
yeah, I do know that as Japanese interpreters, we compete very heavily with the native Japanese interpreters, and I think they tend to have a little bit of an edge.
That's definitely what it seems like.
So I guess to answer your question as the other in-house translator interpreter is, I got my job through personal connections. I knew the other translator outside of work beforehand, and she was familiar with my Japanese abilities because we actually went to a Japanese study group, or I went to the one that she ran. She ran a Japanese study group that I attended.
Oh, very cool.
She basically just said to her president, I'm going on maternity leave and you need someone to cover for me. I know this person who has no experience but could probably do it. And then she trained me and now I'm here. So sometimes it can just be personal connections, and I also only have an N2. I failed N1 last year, and I'm trying to decide if I want to take it again this year. Don't know yet. And the interpreter that got me hired passed N1 about 2 years ago, but she's been interpreting for 7 years now. So
wow, it's like a whole different.
Yeah, so she definitely did not have N1 when she started translating and interpreting. But then again, we are in the United States, so far less native Japanese to compete with.
Yeah, that's sort of the thing, is that over here, pretty much like every single job posting, at least lists N1 as a hard requirement. I don't know if they mean it, so I often will still apply.
Yeah, I would say go for it anyway. Maybe still apply.
I haven't had too much luck. All of the work that I found has been through networking and personal connections. Pretty much every like paper application that I've sent in has ended in eventual failure, even if I made it through an interview at least.
Yeah,
That is how. Sorry, go ahead, Jessica.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that I think, I mean, honestly, that's pretty similar with a lot of jobs. Like connections can really get you places. And I actually did do one interview at another company. I was thinking of moving, and a recruiter, I went through a recruiter, and then I had the interview, and I took a translation test, and that again, the English was actually unintelligible because I had to do both ways, Japanese to English, English to Japanese, and the English article they gave me was unintelligible, so that was really fun for an interview. And I told her that when I was leaving, like, I couldn't translate this because I have no idea what it says.
Wow.
So that one ended up failing. But I think barely is what the recruiter told me, but I don't know if she was just being nice.
No, I don't know. That's rough.
I think it's definitely important to get that out there and network and use your personal connections. That can definitely get you pretty far.
Yeah, I agree, because last week, actually, I did my first job as, like, really small, but me and a group of local translators did interpreting at the Kyoto Bit Summit video game conference. So we kind of just walked around the floor and, asked if anybody needed any help. So I was really nervous because I'm not completely confident in interpreting. So just having the small job of helping reception was a really good experience. But that also it was all done through networking and just talking to people. So hopefully that'll give me some more opportunities.
Yeah, definitely.
It was really fun.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning that. I was interested in doing it, but unfortunately it's just a little far. So.
No, it was a good time though. It was a good experience. So I was glad, and it gave me a little bit more confidence in interpreting, since I'm not quite.
Interpreting is scary. Interpreting is scary.
Yeah,
I was terrified when my translator coworker originally asked me if I wanted the job. I was like, I could probably do translation, but I don't think I can do interpretation. And she's like, oh, you'll be fine. So now I just do simultaneous interpretation, like whatever.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously I'm not amazing, but I think it's intimidating, but then you kind of just do it because you have to, and you can manage as long as you're.
It was really good experience that it kind of, not completely, but helped me get over that fear and just kind of do it and accept that, I'll probably mess up, which, I did a little bit, but it kind of helps you just kind of get into it rather than avoid it. So that was really good.
Yeah, one native Japanese translator that I know here gave me some pretty good advice. He said that I shouldn't visualize professional translators and interpreters as being like completely flawless, always can do everything right, like, because the truth is, there's all levels of people, and if you wait to do something until you think you're good enough or qualified enough to do it, you're never going to do it, because you just keep learning. You just got to put yourself out there, because it's not like everyone out there is doing a 100% perfect job. Everybody just does the best they can at any given time.
Yeah, it helped me realize that, because I've kind of put interpreters, I guess, on a pedestal that they never make a mistake, and they're so fluent. And then as I get experience, I realize sometimes like everybody makes mistakes. So
actually, I totally have my interpreter coworker and I kind of like, we really focus on one thing. We really kind of get stuck on his numbers because interpreting Japanese numbers is so hard.
No.
Yes. Why is the numbers the last thing to come? I feel like
they're terrible. They're so hard.
Just give me that in writing, please. Give me it in writing.
Yeah.
Right. And like I was doing really good for a while, and probably a couple of months in, like I actually missed one number, and she's like, I think that's the first time I've heard you miss a number. But then she was reading an article later. Apparently, like, even UN interpreters only get like 30% of numbers correct.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Really?
See, I thought that UN interpreters were the flawless,
Right. So she was reading that. She was reading that, and we were just like, okay, we're good. We're just doing our best.
Okay, so can I jump in here for a second?
Yeah.
I was just looking for there's a talk by a guy named Alex Farrell in Kyoto for JAT a couple of months back, and he gave a site, and he said this is the best site if you're a freelancer looking for work. And I was just looking it up if I had it on my piece of paper, but I can't find it at the moment. So I will contribute that his advice if you're looking.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's really helpful. I appreciate it.
Okay. Any other topics? We only have 5 minutes, but somebody want to get something in?
One piece of advice, if you are doing interpretation, the most important thing is don't look like you made a mistake.
A friend told me the same thing. She says, whatever you say, just say it with confidence. They'll never know.
Panicking and hiding under the chair is the first sign. They will question everything you say after that.
I guess you can go back and correct yourself when the opportunity arises if you realize you made a mistake.
Yeah, I had to learn that last week because I had a habit of stuttering because I was nervous. So that's not a good sign either. So I was like really trying. I was trying not to stutter and really look like I knew what I was talking about.
By the way, you really ought to hear from Shu here because he's a master interpreter. Shu, would you like to say something?
No comments. It's interpreting the can of worms, and I wouldn't like to open it. Yeah.
There's this one semi-joke, semi-piece of advice that Allison, my coworker, always gives to interpreters is if you have to interpret a joke because you can almost never interpret it and have it actually be funny, is apparently you can just say, the speaker just said a joke, can you please laugh? And usually people do it because it's actually kind of funny.
That's great.
That's great.
And because our president loves to make really impossible to interpret jokes and
like puns.
Yeah, I don't know, just absurd jokes. I can't even think of any examples off the top of my head. But yeah, some are puns, some are just.
Well, one quick example of that. There was a NASA scientist in Kyushu giving a presentation on a satellite that NASA and JAXA were working on together, and it was about global warming and CO2 measurement. And he was trying to explain the ocean absorbing the carbon dioxide like beer losing its fizz. And the interpreter just goes white, turns to him and says, "What do you mean fizz?" So he spends the next 5 minutes trying to explain the analogy. And the entire Japanese audience the audience is just stunned, what do we do now?
I remember Allison telling me one time about a speech she interpreted for the president of our company that he was giving to our mother company. And he started something off and he was talking about boats. And in the end, he finished it with friendship. And she's like, you can't do that in Japanese. It just doesn't work. And I don't know what she said she did, but I think she made it work because you have to.
Yeah.
Told them to laugh.
Probably.
Okay, so Jeremy, would you like to insert a few words here as we approach the closing of this video conference?
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, before Shu shuts the forum down, make full use of Basecamp and to ask any more questions and network and various information. Richard will be posting something. I'll probably chime in various occasions with further links to useful sites. And I hope to see at least a few of you on the Facebook group. I don't know whether you've received your invites yet or whether you've been able to join yet.
I haven't seen it yet, but I assume it'll be.
I received the invite, but it still won't let me access the page. So I assume that it must be waiting on approval or something.
Yeah, administrator has to approve you.
Yeah, but I got it.
yeah, it's a fun group and very informal and useful. So yeah. Otherwise, I just
about the Facebook page. The Facebook Japanese English translators. What is it?
yeah.
Group. Yeah, you get lots of joking stuff as well, not just serious replies. So you have to sift through it sometimes because it's Facebook.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah. So Jeremy, sorry to interrupt your train of thought there.
No, not at all. I have no more to say really, apart from good luck to you all.
Thank you.
Before we conclude, I have a housekeeping announcement.
Okay.
May I speak it now? Well, you have already shared with each other your feedback about what you learned in this ejuku session. But traditionally, I, as the coordinator or super janitor of ejuku, distribute questionnaire to our participants after the second video conference. And so I post this questionnaire in our forum, but also I will upload the document to the document section of the Basecamp. Anyway, I'd appreciate it if you'd read it and answer the questions in the questionnaire.
Thank you.
So that's our onagai at the end.
Sorry.
So thank you very much for attending today's video conference, and of course your participation in Basecamp. And we hope you learned a lot and continue to constantly learn. That's one of the greatest things, getting paid to learn for doing this job. And that's all I have to say at this point.
Okay then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, guys.